Welcome to Two Witness Teaching Program. Two Witness, a Bible teaching program to change and transform people. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Let's dive into it.
So in chapter 25, it says, "And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel, and the man was very great. He had 3,000 sheep, 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. She was a woman of good understanding and of beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings. He was of the house of Caleb. And churlish is very hard, just severe, hard-hearted, hard-tempered, that type of a man. David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. David sent out 10 young men. And David said to the young men, 'Get up to Carmel, go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. Thus shall you say to him that lives in prosperity, Peace be both to you, peace be to thine house, and peace be to all that you have. Now I have heard that you have shearers. Now thy shepherds, which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there anything missing to them, all the while they were in Carmel.'" We're going to find as we continue to read, but I think it helps if you know it now. David and his men were with Nabal's servants in the field and helped protect the flocks, help care for the flocks, help keep off thieves and wild animals. But not once did they ever take a sheep or a goat for themselves. They did only good to Nabal. So now he's going to send these 10 young men to Nabal and just ask if they can have some provision. Remember, David's in the wilderness with 600 men. They've got to eat. They've got to have some provision for themselves. Verse 8, "Ask thy young men, they will show you. Wherefore let the young men find favor in thine eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever comes to thine hand unto thy servants, and to thy son David." And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all these words and the name of David, and they ceased. So they came in the name of David. They said everything in the name of David that David said. Nabal answered David's servants and said, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water, my flesh that I have killed for my shearers, and give it to men whom I know not whence they be, where they came from?" So David's young men turned their way and went again and came and told him all these sayings. So David says to his men, "Gird ye on every man his sword." And they girded on every man his sword. David also girded on his sword, and there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff, the provisions. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, "Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good unto us. We were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us, both by night and day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore know and consider what you will do, for evil is determined against our master and against all his household. For he is such a son of Belial, or wickedness, that a man cannot speak to him." Now Abigail, remember, was described as being a woman of good understanding. Abigail made haste. She took 200 loaves, 2 bottles of wine, 5 sheep ready dressed, 5 measures of parched corn, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. She said to her servants, "Go on before me. Behold, I come after you." But she told not her husband Nabal. It was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Imagine her boldness to come against 400 men with weapons that are coming to kill her family. David had said, "Surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained to him. For he has requited me, or repaid me evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave of all that pertained to him by the morning light, any that pisses against the wall," meaning men. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted. She lighted off the ass. She fell before David on her face and bowed herself to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Upon me, my Lord, upon me let this iniquity be. And let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience, and hear the words of thine handmaid. Let not, my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal. For as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him." And Nabal means fool. "But I, thy handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord, whom thou didst send. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives, and as thy soul lives, seeing the Lord has withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging themselves with thine own hand, now let thine enemies, and they that seek evil to my Lord, be as Nabal. And now this blessing which thine handmaid has brought unto my Lord, let it even be given to the young men that follow my Lord." Now in verse 28, she's going to say something far wiser than her husband ever said. Because if he knew or if he didn't know, she's going to confess that she knows who David is. "I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid." Was it her trespass? No, it was her husband. "For the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house. Because my Lord fights the battles of the Lord, and evil has not been found in thee all thy days. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee and to seek thy life. But the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God. And the souls of thine enemies, them shall he sling out, as of the middle of a sling. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord shall have done to my Lord, according to all the good that he has spoken concerning thee, and shall have appointed thee ruler over Israel, that this shall be no grief to thee, nor offense of heart to my Lord, either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my Lord has avenged himself. But when the Lord shall have dwelt well with my Lord, then remember thine handmaid." And I just love this monologue. I love this speech. It's so inspired by the Holy Spirit. She's saying, this is who you are. I know someone is seeking your life. I know you're going to be established on the throne. And when God preserves you and establishes your kingdom, this will be but a light matter. And so she's really begging for mercy for her family. Very beautiful, beautiful speech. 32, David says to Abigail, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent you this day to meet me. And blessed be thy advice. And blessed be thou, which has kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself with mine own hand." God's going to avenge him. "For in very deed, as the Lord God of Israel lives, which has kept me back from hurting thee, except you have hasted to come and meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light any of the men in the family." David received of her hand that which she brought him, and said to her, "Go in peace to your house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice. I have accepted thy person." So tremendous faith here on the part of Abigail. Now Abigail has to go home and face her husband, maybe who doesn't even know that anything is going on. 36, Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. His heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Wherefore she told him nothing, less or more, till the morning light. But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. It came to pass about 10 days after, that the Lord smote Nabal, and that he died. So David did not avenge himself, God avenged him. When David heard Nabal was dead, he said, "Blessed be the Lord, that has pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal. He has kept his servant from evil. For the Lord returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed or arranged with Abigail to take her to him to wife.
So David was tempted to avenge himself. David had been wronged. That's true. And so he was thinking he'd go and judge Nabal and his house. But God uses Abigail to come and say, don't do it yourself. Let the Lord avenge you. Right. If you've been wronged, let God come through and correct it. Let him be the judge. And he says that God has sent you to me this day so that I wouldn't go and so I'd listen to you and I could have a change of heart and not avenge myself. Right. So that's what David determined Abigail was doing, used by God to change his mind. And so then here again later he says, God has returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head and stopped him from avenging himself, which apparently would have been wrong in this case, or God wouldn't have intervened and persuaded David not to.
That's right. So Abigail is sent for to become David's wife. Verse 41, she arose, bowed herself on her face to the earth, and said, Behold, let thine handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. Very humble. She hasted, arose, rode upon an ass with 5 damsels of hers that went after her. She went after the messengers of David and became his wife. Now interesting, or let me finish this. David also took Ahinoam, and he had 2 wives, but Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to someone else. So in 26, Paul is going to continue to pursue. Again, the Ziphites go to Saul and say he's hiding in the wilderness of Ziph, so Saul comes down. Verse 3, Saul pitched in the hill of Hachilah. David abode in the wilderness. He saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies and understood that Saul was come in very deed. Now they're going to have another encounter. David arose, came to the place where Saul had pitched. David held the place where Saul lay, and Abner was the captain of his host. Saul lay in the trench, and the people pitched round about him. So David is close enough and watching to see where Saul and Abner actually lie down to sleep. Verse 6, Then answered David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite and Abishai, Who will go down with me to Saul to the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with thee. David and Abishai came to the people by night. Behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench. His spear was stuck in the ground at his bolster by his pillow. But Abner and the people lay round about him. Then said Abishai to David, God has delivered thine enemy into thy hand this day. Therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear, even to the earth at once. I will not smite him the second time. David said to Abishai, Destroy him not. Who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said furthermore, As the Lord liveth, the Lord shall smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall descend into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch forth my hand against the Lord's anointed. So you have to ask yourself, so why is he there? If he's not there to kill him, he's standing there right next to him while he's sleeping, discussing why he's not going to kill him. But take the spear that is at his bolster and the cruse of water, and let us go. Another sign that he was close to him. So David took the spear and the cruse of water. They got them away. No man saw it, nor knew it, neither awakened. For they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord was fallen upon them providentially. David went to the other side and stood on the top of the hill afar off, a great space being between them. David cried to the people and to Abner, saying, Answerest thou not, Abner? Then Abner answered and said, Who art thou that criest to the king? David said to Abner, Art not thou a valiant man? Who is like unto thee in Israel? Wherefore then have you not kept the Lord thy king? For there came one of the people in to destroy the king of the Lord, of thy Lord. This thing is not good that you have done. As the Lord liveth, you are worthy to die, because you have not kept your master, the Lord's anointed. Now see where the king's spear is, and where the cruse of water that was at his bolster." So now he's sort of taunting Abner. You should have been protecting the king. Were you sleeping?
Right? Sleeping on the job.
Sleeping on the job. Saul knew David's voice, and he said, "Is this thy voice, my son David?" David said, "It is my voice, my lord king." He said, "Wherefore doth my lord thus pursue after his servant? What have I done? What evil is in mine hand? Now therefore I pray thee, let my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord has stirred thee up against me, let him accept an offering. But if they be the children of men, cursed be thee before the Lord. For they have driven me out this day from abiding in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, Go serve other gods. Now therefore let not my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord. For the king of Israel is come out to seek a flea, as when one does hunt a partridge in the mountains." So again, another speech where David is claiming his innocence, saying, if there's some sin, God will accept a sacrifice. There's really no cause for this. 21, Saul says, "I've sinned. Return, my son David. I will no more do thee harm. Because my soul was precious in thine eyes this day, behold, I have played the fool and have erred exceedingly." David answered and said, "Behold, the king's spear. Let one of the young men come over and fetch it. The Lord render to every man his righteousness and his faithfulness."
Amen.
And that's a powerful statement to hear in the Old Testament. By what standard were they judged before Jesus dies on the cross? By their own righteousness, by their own choice to sin or not to sin. It hasn't changed. The Lord render to every man his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord delivered thee into my hand today, but I would not stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed. Behold, as thy life was much set by this day in mine eyes, so let my life be much set by in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Amen. And again Saul blesses David. Blessed be thou, my son David. Thou shalt both do great things, and also shall still prevail.
That's right.
So David went to his way, and Saul returned to his place. So again, probably a not very sincere confession on Saul's part. It's almost like it's prophetically coming out of his mouth, the truth, but yet he's not acting by it. It's not changing his own heart, his own actions. David is still his enemy. He still would rather see him dead than alive.
Yeah, this is at least the third time Saul swears, "I will not harm you, David," and goes out and tries to kill him. So it's certainly not sincere, but again, he's acknowledging, I'm wrong. I mean, you saved my life again. You saved my life again. Spare my life.
Yep.
And but it's not changing anything with Saul. And unfortunately, that's the way it can be. And you look at some people and you go, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Yep.
They still don't want to serve God. So even though they admit they're wrong, you can go down to the court anytime, and you can hear sinners admit they've done wrong, but are they going to change? Probably not. In fact, I won't go into the story very long, but the young man who stole our phone when we were in Uganda, he admitted to doing wrong, but he had no confession that he was going to change whatsoever. So people know when they do wrong, but purposing to change is something very, very different. And this is what we see with Saul, why he says, "Oh, I swear I won't. No, I tried to kill you, but I'd never do that again. Never do it again." He's out there trying to kill him again.
But by now he has a reputation in the eyes of David. He's not changing. And we see that in the next verse, chapter 27, verse 1. David said in his heart, "I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul." He knows Saul's not going to stop. "There is nothing better for me that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. Saul shall despair of me to seek me in any of the coast of Israel, so I shall escape out of his hand." So he's leaving Israel, going to the Philistines. So David arose, went over with the 600 men that were with him to Achish, the son of Maach, the king of Gath. Now back in chapter 21, he went to Achish before, right? This would have been even a few years before this. David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam and Abigail. So, living among the Philistines with all their families. It was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him. Well, David says to Achish, "If I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee?" So Achish is totally convinced David is not there to do him harm, even though David has the reputation that he is a mighty warrior, that he does kill Philistines. Achish's heart is soft towards David, and he gives him a town. Verse 6, he gives him Ziklag, where they could dwell. Verse 7, and the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites and the Gezrites and the Amalekites. Those nations were of the old inhabitants of the land. Verse 9, David smote the land. He left neither man nor woman alive. He took away the sheep, the oxen, the asses, the camels, and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. He goes home. So David's out conquering. Achish says, "Where have you made a road today? Where have you gone?" David said, "Against the south of Judah, and against the south of Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites." Is this who he went to conquer? No, he went to the Geshurites, the Gezrites, the Amalekites. So he lies to the king and says he went over south of Judah, not that he went over more toward the west, toward Egypt. And David saved neither man nor woman alive in those towns to bring tidings to Gath, saying, lest they should tell on us, saying, so did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwells in the country of the Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying, he has made his people Israel utterly to abhor him. Therefore he shall be my servant forever. So here the king of the Philistines is deceived into thinking David has turned against Israel. He's fighting and conquering the inhabitants of his own land, when actually he's fighting and conquering the inhabitants of the land of the Philistines, and town by town he's killing all the people, so no one can even escape to report to the king what he's doing.
And certainly there's no way he could do that without God's blessing upon
Right.
him to actually be a general among the Philistines and use that position to kill Philistines. I mean, that's awesome.
I don't think
Only
he's a
God
general.
could.
He's not a
support
general
that.
among the
Well, he's
Philistines.
among men.
He's living among the Philistines.
But he's
going to
thought to
see-
being used as part of their armies.
We're going to
him and his
see that
men.
he attempts to join the army here coming up.
Okay.
Coming soon.
To a theater near
So, chapter 28, that's where this happens.
you. Okay.
Came to pass in those days, Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel, which would be Saul and the armies of Israel. Achish said to David, know thou assuredly that you shall go with me to battle, you and my men. So David is going to go fight against Saul and against the armies of Israel. David said to Achish, surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, therefore will I make thee keeper of my head forever. Now Samuel was dead. All Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, his own city. Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. The Philistines gathered themselves together against Israel. Saul gathered Israel together. Verse 5, when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. Saul inquired of the Lord. The Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor Urim, nor prophets. So Saul says to his servants, seek me a woman that has a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said, Behold, there's a woman that has a familiar spirit at Endor. So this is how far Saul has degenerated. Now he's not even trying to seek the Lord anymore. He's going out to witches for information. Verse 8, this is a familiar passage. Saul disguised himself. He put on other raiment. He went, and 2 men with him. They came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit. Bring me him up, who I shall name to thee. And the woman said, You know what Saul has done, how he has cut off those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life and cause me to die? Saul sware to her by the Lord. Now it's interesting, you would make a vow according to the name and the authority of the Lord. You're making a vow to a witch using the name of the Lord. I don't know why she'd accept that. As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Whom shall I bring up to thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. Now we know Samuel's dead. When the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why have you deceived me? For you are Saul. Remember, she's in contact with familiar spirits, spirits that are familiar with who everybody is. So her own spirits reveal to her, this is the king in disguise, and this really is Samuel that is appearing. The king said, Be not afraid. What did you see? The woman said to Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth, out of the grave. He said, What form is he of? She said, An old man comes up. He's covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived it was Samuel. He stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. Samuel said to Saul, Why have you disquieted me to bring me up? Where was Samuel? Abraham's bosom. And so I really believe this was Samuel and that God providentially allowed this meeting to take place. We're going to see what happens.
We know it happens later with Jesus, Moses, and Elijah.
Moses and Elijah appear with Jesus.
It can happen on very, very special occasions by the providence of God.
Right. So Saul answers, it's in verse 15, I'm sore distressed. The Philistines make war against me. God has departed from me, answers me no more, neither by prophets or dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that you may make known to me what I shall do. Remember, Samuel hasn't seen Saul in probably decades. It was very soon after Saul became king that he sinned. God took his anointing off of him, and Samuel, it says, saw the king no more. So decades later, Saul's desperate enough, he calls up Samuel from the grave. I have called thee that you may make known to me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, Wherefore then do you ask of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee, and is become thine enemy? And the Lord has done to him as he spake by me. For the Lord has rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even David. And we saw this, maybe back in earlier in 1 Samuel, when he lays hand on Samuel's garment, and it tears. And he says symbolically, the Lord has rent the kingdom out of your hand. He's repeating this to Saul.
If you want, on verse 17, that the Lord hath done to him, you can put David there, because there's a pronoun without a direct reference to a noun. You might want to key that in so you don't get confused sometime later.
So the Lord has done to him, David,
as he spake
by me. For the Lord has rent the kingdom out of your hand and given it to thy neighbor, even to David.
God has done to David exactly what he said that he would do, and what I told you he would do.
Verse 18, Because you obeyed not the voice of the Lord, nor executed his fierce wrath upon Amalek, therefore has the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, here's the judgment, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me dead. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. This is not what Saul wanted to hear. Saul fell straightway all along the earth. He was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel. There was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day nor all the night. And the woman came unto Saul, and she saw he was sore troubled, and said to him, Behold, I have obeyed your voice. I have put my life in my hand. I have hearkened to your words which you spoke unto me. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thy handmaid. Let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that you may have strength when you go on your way. But he refused, and said, I will not eat. His servants together with the woman compelled him. He hearkened to their voice. Here she kills a calf and makes bread. They eat, and then they leave that night. So the next day, here they are. It's Israel against the Philistines. Where's David? He's with the Philistines.
Can I just add one thing to the last
Yeah.
chapter before we move on? You might want to, because this might be a question with some people, make a note of. When Samuel says, tomorrow thou shalt be with, then thy son shall be with me, we understand you're going to leave this world, this natural life on this world. You're going to die, and you're going to enter the next world, which is the place of departed spirits. Not that you're going to be in a place of comfort. I mean, not that kind of with Samuel. But as Jesus describes how the next life was, a place of comfort here and a place of torment, and there's no passing between them, but you can see them, and they're all in the same area. That's what Samuel's saying. You're going to die and come into this area. You're not going to be in a place of comfort, so we need to make sure we point that out.
Right.
Not with him in that way, but leaving the natural world, going on into the place of departed spirits.
Okay, so we're seeing these accounts of David and what he's doing, these accounts of Saul and what he's doing, and there's 3 chapters left, and they're moving very quickly to a head here. And by the end of this book, we're going to see exactly where David stands, exactly where Saul stands. We already see the judgment. Saul's going to die. So 29, the Philistines gathered together all their armies to Aphek. The Israelites pitched by a fountain, Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed on by hundreds, by thousands. But David and his men passed on in the rearward with Achish. So David's in the back with the king. Well, then said the princes of the Philistines, What are these Hebrews here? Achish said to the princes of the Philistines, Is not this David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, which has been with me these days or these years? I have found no fault in him, since he fell unto me unto this day. So David agrees to go into battle with the Philistines against Israel, but the Philistine princes don't trust them. Verse 4, the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him, and the princes of the Philistines said, Make this fellow return, that he may go to his place which thou hast appointed him. Let him not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he be an adversary to us. Maybe he'll reconcile himself to his master. Should it not be with the heads of these men? What if he decides to start fighting for Israel, and then they'll be against us? Verse 5, Is this not David, of whom they sang one to another in dances, saying, Saul slew his thousands, and David his 10,000s? Achish called David and said, Surely as the Lord lives, you have been upright, and thy going out and thy coming in with me in the host is good in my sight. I have not found evil in thee since the day of thy coming unto me unto this day. Nevertheless, the Lord's favor thee not. Wherefore now return, go in peace, that you displease not the lords of the Philistines. David said to Achish, But what have I done? What hast thou found in thy servant, so long as I have been with thee unto this day, that I may not go and fight against the enemies of my lord the king? Now remember, David wasn't really submitting to Achish as his lord the king. He was off conquering the southern parts of his land and killing everyone, so the king wouldn't even know. Achish answered and said to David, I know you are good in my sight, as an angel of God. Notwithstanding, the princes of the Philistines have said, He shall not go up with us into battle. So we see David's going to return back to his city, Ziklag. He's not going to go into battle. Now, chapter 30. When David and his men were come to Ziklag on the 3rd day they were journeying, the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire. He had taken the women captives that were therein, They slew not any, either great or small, but carried them away and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city. Behold, it was burned with fire. Their wives, their sons, their daughters were taken captive. David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept till they had no more power to weep. And David's 2 wives were also taken captive. Not something that God prevented, but we do see that not one person was put to death. All were spared. Verse 6, David was greatly distressed, and for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord, his God. David said to Abiathar the priest, I pray thee, bring me hither the ephod. Abiathar brings the ephod. David inquired at the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And God answers, Pursue. Thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. David went, he and the 600 men that were with him. They came to the brook Besor, where those that were left behind stayed. David pursued, he and 400 men. 200 stayed behind, which were so faint they could not go over the brook. Verse 11, they found an Egyptian in the field. They brought him to David. They gave him bread. They made him drink water. They gave him a piece of a cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. When he had eaten, his spirit came again to him. He had eaten no bread, nor drunk any water for 3 days and 3 nights. David said, To whom belongest thou, and whence art thou? He said, I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite. My master left me, because 3 days ago I fell sick. We made an invasion upon the south of the Kerethites, and upon the coast which belongs to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. David said, Can you bring me down to this company? He said, Swear unto me by God that you will neither kill me, nor deliver me into the hand of my master, and I will bring thee down to this company. Verse 16, When he had brought him down, behold, they were spread abroad upon all the earth, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil they had taken out of the land of the Philistines and out of the land of Judah. And David has how many men with him? 400.
I think it's up to 6, but it's okay.
And he left 200 behind.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm correct.
David smote them from the twilight even until the evening of the next day. And there escaped not a man of them except 400 young men, which rode upon camels and fled. David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives. There was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, neither spoil, nor anything they had taken to them. David recovered all. Now, not only did they recover all of their own goods, but they took the spoil of the Amalekites and the spoil the Amalekites had taken from the other cities. So they left with much more than they came with. Verse 21, David came to the 200 men, which were so faint they could not follow. And it's funny, David's 400 refused to share any of the spoil with the 200. If they can't come fight with us, they don't get anything. And David said, that's not how we're going to act. He says, verse 23, You shall not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord has given us, who has preserved us, and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. Who will hearken unto you in this matter? But as his part is that goes down into battle, so shall his part be that tarries by the stuff. They shall part alike. And so it was from that day forward he made a statute and an ordinance for Israel unto this day.
Yep.
Now in verse 26, David comes to Ziklag, and he sends even some of the spoil to the elders of Judah, to his friends. Behold, a present for you. And then there's a whole list of everyone that he sends some of the spoil to. So we see even something in David's character where taking the spoil is good, but it's not just for his own wealth, his own building up of his own household, but he's actually sharing with others. Now, chapter 31 finishes out the battle with Israel and the Philistines. Remember, David's not there. He was sent back by the Philistines. He was off fighting with the Amalekites. But the Philistines went into battle with Israel. Verse 1, the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. The Philistines followed hard upon Saul, upon his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab and Melchishua, Saul's sons. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw thy sword, and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and abuse me." But his armor-bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell upon it. And we're going to read some more details about Saul's death coming up. We'll just leave it at this for now. When his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his sword and died with him. So Saul died, his 3 sons, his armor-bearer, and all his men that same day together. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, and they that were on the other side Jordan, saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and fled. And the Philistines came in and dwelt in them. Came to pass on the morning, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. They cut off his head, stripped off his armor, sent it into the land of the Philistines round about, to publish it in the house of their idols and among their people. And we see that the people of Israel come and take the bodies of Saul and his sons that had been hung up on a wall and buried them and fasted in mourning. So we see this entire book taking place over a period of time, at least the 40 years that Saul was king. He was given a 40-year reign. And as we go into 2 Samuel, we see now that Saul is dead. David will then ascend to the throne, and it continues with the reign under David's kingdom.
So a tragic end for Saul. Didn't have to be that way. Certainly God would not have wanted it that way. But so it is for those who choose not to follow him. And he's the cause of his own misery and death.
That's right.
It takes us to 2 Samuel, and I'd like to start that book and maybe just go 1 or 2 chapters. 2 Samuel, if you have outlines, we'll go over that. The theme, to record the complete reign of King David of Israel. It begins with the death of Saul, and David, although he's already been anointed to be king, he actually starts to reign as king. Time covers about 40 years from David becoming king until his death. The purpose, to establish the Davidic covenant and kingdom, and to record the victories and tribulations of David now as king. And there's a few key passages, moral government passages. I think you'll recognize them. We usually park ourselves there for a little while to contemplate them. They're wonderful. They tell how God is ruling and judging the hearts of men based on their actions, behaviors. So 2 Samuel begins with David hearing about the death of Saul. Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites. That's the battle that David was involved with, because they had attacked them and he pursued them, brought his wives back and all the possessions. Then David hears that Saul has been killed in battle with the Philistines. And David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. It came to pass on the 3rd day that, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes rent, and earth upon his head, so it appeared like he was in mourning. And so it was, when he came to David, that he fell to the earth and did him obeisance, or reverence David. And David said unto him, From whence comest thou? And he said unto him, Out of the camp of Israel am I escaped. And David said unto him, How went the matter? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, That the people are fled from the battle, and many of the people are fallen and dead, and Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. And David said unto the young man that told him, how knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan his son be dead? And the young men told him, said, As I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear. So as I was approaching Saul, I saw that he leaned upon his spear. He took a spear into himself. And lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me, and called unto me, and I answered, Here am I. And he said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. Now remember, these are the exact people that had just attacked David and took his things, and he'd fought them and retrieved them. So it's not really a great thing to be in the eyes of David at the moment. But this Amalekite had other problems as well, and they'll be revealed. He said unto me, so Saul says to the Amalekite, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for this anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. So when we add up everything that's happened, first Saul was hit with arrows, then Saul knows it's a mortal wound, he feels he's going to die. He takes a sword into himself, but still he's not dead. And so he calls upon this Amalekite saying, Finish me off. So that's how we would understand how Saul dies. You add it all up, and that's the full story. You get the first two parts in chapter 31 of 1 Samuel. You get one more thing added on in chapter 1 of 2 Samuel. So Saul says to the Amalekite, My life is still in me. And he feared what the Philistines would do to him if they found him still alive. So he says, You finish me off. So I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure he could not live after he was fallen. I saw his wounds. I'm sure he couldn't live. So I did a mercy killing. And here we see it's not acceptable ever to take someone's life. Mercy killings or euthanasia, it's no way, it's unacceptable in the eyes of God. Well, this man says, I was doing him a favor to kill him. So I knew he couldn't live, I took his life. And I took the crown that was upon his head, and the bracelet that was on his arm, and I have brought them hither unto my Lord. I saved these things and brought them to you, because I know you're the next one to reign in Israel. And we're going to find out a little bit later more about this man's intentions. They weren't really noble. They weren't. The Scripture is going to reveal it to us. So David took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until the evening. For Saul, you see all of the reasons why they're mourning. Number one, even for Saul, and for Jonathan his son, for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. And David said unto the young man that told him, Whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. And David said unto him, How was it that you were not afraid to stretch forth your hand to destroy, or to kill, to murder the Lord's anointed? Now remember, even David, when he had the opportunity, would not avenge himself of Saul. And he said, How did you not fear to kill the king? Why did you think you could do that? And David called one of the young men and said, Go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. And this is the law of Israel. You murder somebody, you die. It's death penalty. If you kill someone, you're put to death. And David said unto him, Thy blood be upon your head. You made this death penalty come to you by what you've done. You killed another man. So, and this is right and proper. This is God's view of taking anyone's life. It's not allowed. For thy mouth has testified against thee, saying, I have slain, I have killed the Lord's anointed. And again, we were referring to the office of the king here. Now, Saul had done many things worthy of death, but it was going to be God that judged him. And certainly not this Amalekite. He had no reason, no cause to kill Saul. And David lamented with lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son. Verse 18, and he bade them teach the children of Judah the use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Joshua. So now Israel is going to take up bow and arrow, learn how to use that. David's going to add that to his arsenal. The beauty of Israel is slain among thy high places. How are the mighty fallen? Before we go on, I wanted to just give another verse that shows the intentions of that Amalekite. In 2 Samuel 4:10, it's important that we go there to make sure we understand that he had done what he'd done to advance himself. He was going to David to looking for rewards for what he had done. 2 Samuel 4:10, when one told me, saying, behold, Saul is dead, thinking to have brought good tidings, I took hold of him and slew him in Ziklag, whom thought that I would have given him a reward for his tidings. So he reveals here what this Amalekite was being judged for. You thought I'd be happy that you put an end to Saul. You brought me his crown, you brought me his bracelet. You think I would be pleased and I'd even reward you. That's why the Amalekite was judged. So it's revealed in 2 Samuel 4:10. If you want to make a link there as you're retelling, as you're reteaching this, you might want to go there to help people understand the full story. So now David is lamenting. He's saying, the beauty of Israel is slain among thy high places, or these people at the pinnacle of their strength, their might. They're taken down. They've been defeated by the Philistines. Verse 20, tell it not in Gath, publish it not in the streets of Askelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, and lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. You mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew, neither let there be rain upon you, nor fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty is vilely cast away, the shield of Saul, as though he had not been anointed with oil, as though he had not been the king of Israel. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan turned back not, and the sword of Saul returned not empty. Or they were great and mighty warriors. They always come back from battle victorious, yet not for this time. And Saul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives, and in their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. You daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you in scarlet and with other delights, who put on ornaments of gold upon your apparel. How are the mighty fallen in the midst of battle? O Jonathan, thou wast slain in thy high places, or in your prime you were cut off. So David is speaking really the best that he can of Saul. And David's character is revealed as such a good character when he sees that God really has brought judgment to Saul and he's gone. David still speaks the best that he can of him. Verse 26, and I am distressed for thee, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant hast thou been unto me. Thy love to me was wonderful, passing the love of woman. Or they had a closeness and bond that usually you would only have with your wife, as far as knowing your all your secrets, knowing your desires, all this kind of. He had that kind of a bond with soulmate. Jonathan. When he says soulmate, I guess people can relate to that. How are the mighty fallen and the weapons of war perished, or our defenses, our arsenals are now gone? And I think that's as far as we can go today. And we'll start next week on 2 Samuel chapter 2.